All right, Lions fans, we back again. I want to talk about the Lions' rushing attack or the Lions' run game. Through the course of this year of the 2020 season, you have saw a variation of different running backs, or even the successor of different running backs, and even go back as far as late last year. You can go with the success of different running backs. When one went down, the next one stepped up, and so forth. But this particular year is a little different, and of course, you could say the offensive line is much more improved than it was last year. Maybe they're much more aware of what Bevel wants. I don't know. Who knows? So the personnel could just be different. You know, the players that they brought in could be just the pieces that Bevel's system needs. We have seen in this past game against Jacksonville, and maybe with the exception of the Saints game, you have saw like a Russian attack. Either if it's coming from the latest game was DeAndre Swift, or prior games you may have Adrian Peterson, or last year it was Bo Scarborough, and a small sample size of Kerryon Johnson. Now, I say that to say the Lions has positioned himself to be actually 150 to 200 yard per game rushing attack between their personnel that they have. Let's say like if I don't know if Bo Scarborough is on IR or he's just not suited or whatever, but let's say like if he's on IR and they bring him off of there, and he does not just the Lions running backs just don't want touches. They want successful touches. That's the difference between, I believe, that the biggest significant jump between years past of Amir Abdullah and Kevin Jones and Kevin Smith and even Java Best is that they want to be successful touches, and that will be based upon knowing how to set up like your offensive lineman. So with both Scarborough, DeAndre Swift, Adrian Peterson, with the sprinkle sample size of Kerryon Johnson, they want like they're learning how to position their backs, or if they're not, they sort Adrian Peterson, of course, but why do I say that they had the potential to be 150 to 200 yard per game uh, rushing attack? Well, I take in account that you have the defensive coordinator of the opposing team has to take in consideration of Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford has, of course, the fans in Detroit or around the league even know that Matthew Stafford has never had a rushing attack. Let's say a consistent, without somebody getting hurt or without the offensive line being depleted or not up to par, up to standard, or whatever the case may be. This is the first time that Matthew Stafford has had the personnel, the right personnel in place to not just take the load off of him, but for Matthew Stafford can set up the run versus the run setting up Matthew Stafford. This is why I said it could be 150 to 200 yard per game type head monster. This team is turning a corner. 3 years coming into it is turning a corner, and you saw it. I saw it last year, but The the evidence that I needed to see this year, I said going into the season, I needed 3 games to show me if they're going to be a contender. 3 games, and 3 games showed me that they're not a contender. I believe they are either a off season away or a trade away to make them into a contender. Is that it's like a hybrid player, sort of like a defense lineman slash linebacker that will complement Trey Flowers and Deshaun Hand and so forth and those guys, but at the same time will complement Jamie Collins and Jelani Tavai. So it's like and the guy he's a particular type of guy. He can fit a 3-4-4-3. So he's considered a hybrid. This why I was a huge fan of them selecting Josh Allen in last year's draft, even though he went to Jacksonville the game before. I mean, the team before the Lions was picking, and excuse me, he was the guy that I was saying that he fits what they need. That type of guy, and that I still the Von Miller type, that edge rush at the same time linebacker. That's who I believe they need for their defense. That's what they need for their defense to be actually complete, and that's my personal opinion. On the offensive side of the ball, they are uh, a right guard away. They are a right guard away from them being a dominant offensive line. Not just a decent offensive line, but a dominant offensive line. They are right guard away. I thought it was going to be Tunney from New England. Could be. But Jonah, I think it's Jonah Jackson. He's doing what I thought it would be, and I think I made an early projection that that right side of the ball is going to be decent. That right side of the ball of the offensive line is going to be great with Halali Paludi Vati and Jonah. They're going to be great. They're going to complement everything for Ragnar. But anyway, the Russian attack. What Jacksonville was able, what DeAndre Swift was able to do in Jacksonville a actual. It was actual. You can say it was a compliment to what the offensive line is able to do. The offensive line is able to protect Stafford. That's a given. So now the team's got to pick their poison. If you know you have Galladay and Hawkinson to be concerned with, and then now you have a two-headed, possible 3 to 4 headed monster in the backfield. You know what you're going to they from the game tape. This even though DeAndre Swift missed a touchdown, that's I think that was a necessary evil. You know, it is a part of the growing pains. So that the potential or the greatness that we could possibly envision him to be can come out. Those type of things has happened. So we're cool with that. But with the game tape that they seen him coming out of the backfield, that he's able to do that, you know, collegiately as well as in a couple games that he played in pro level. But this game here opened it up a little bit. That don't mean they need to feed him more. But if he's able to do a portion of what he did in the Jacksonville game in the next coming weeks, then he's great. You know, him, Adrian Peterson, and Kerryon don't need more touches. They just need continuity with that offensive line. And I believe they don't have to have more touches to be successful. They just actually need a continuity of offensive line, you know, and they will be able to set up the block. so to speak, and they will find their way. They'll find their hole, and they get their yards and so forth. Now, I don't think there's not one guy that's averaging less than 3 a carry. Between the three, maybe so. Possibly, I could be wrong, but I don't think that none of them are averaging less than 3 a carry. So they averaging 3 plus per carry. So and that's off an offensive line that hasn't been in a position to actually see what they can do as a unit yet, because everything has to be shuffled so far, through injuries and so sort of speak, and it has been a deal. But even with that, you are seeing the success of a run game. Everybody's knowing their assignment, even if they're a first year or rookie or they're a vet or whatever. They've been here. They're learning how to play together, and that is a tribute to Matt Patricia. He's very detailed. What I mean by that is his practices consist of this. We're going to practice a play. We'll do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again. He's a drill sergeant in that regard, right? Or some people may call him a bit of a um, condescending or whatever. I don't know, but he's a guy that he if you want to move on to the next thing, do the first thing right. So until they were ready to get, let's say, for example, for the defense, until they was ready to get past until they got the man system and intact, he wasn't going to move on to anything else. That's my personal belief. I don't know how factual that is. And then they are progressing in man, so they're moving on to he's able to change it up a little bit, to be a little bit less man, more other ways. Now, fans may say that he need to do this more, do this less, but if the players can't do one thing right, why would you move them on to something else? You do it and do it and do it until you get that one thing right, and then you get that one thing right, and you move to the next thing. So I believe the same thing goes with that offensive line, and I mean the rushing attack as well. They don't need more touches. DeAndre Swift, Adrian Peterson, Kerryon Johnson. They don't need more touches. And that's not to say because it's undeserving. No, earn it. I mean, if it works, if don't, in other words, don't overpay for something, or overstay your keep or something like that. If it's running, I get it. You want to keep milking it till it's dry. I get it. But at the same time, no. Know when they're learning to know when enough is enough. And so let the offensive line gel more. If the offensive line can gel more, the running backs doesn't need more touches to be successful. It will become a balanced attack when the offensive line can gel more. The holes are there, even with the scrambling or the shuffling of the offensive line. That the holes are there because they got guys that want to do their job, and it's very contagious. So I don't know if anybody noticed, but when you saw the touches that Kerryon was getting, he played with a little edge on this, like whatever, like he was motivated. Now I don't know if they have anything to do with DeAndre Swift and his name and whatever, or just Kerryon just have an opportunity to perform. But what Adrian Peterson and DeAndre Swift is doing, predominantly what Adrian Peterson did it was the game against the was it the Saints game? I don't know the game before the Saints. I'm drawing a blank. But there was the game that there was a close game that they lost. They was up in the game and they'd lost that game. Can't think of it, but Adrian Peterson was running the ball, and I think it was out of the team was I think Matthew Stafford just do some kind of interception, and the team went to like this sunken mode, like where they just depleted, they just dropped, and then you saw this run by Adrian Peterson. He broke it. He broke like a 14-yard or something like that. Out of they was losing, but and I was saying in the video that even if they lose the game, they had the lead, they lost the league and whatever. Even if they lose the game, it didn't matter. I just want to see them come out that hole. That hole when a mistake happened or that sort of deal happened where they go into this hole when adversity hits. I want to see them come out. And when you got a guy like Adrian Peterson leading your running back core, you don't have to run him anymore. Now, it's amazing how when Adrian Peterson came along and he getting the holes and everything else, this is when you had on the left side of the ball, you had I think Joe Dahl was there, and then on the right side you had Crosby and Jonah, and you saw a little running game going. Like like they was averaging definitely like 3+ yards per carry, right? And so you saw something establishing. What Adrian Peterson did there to the run game, that gave everybody in the running back core like a standard. We play to Adrian Peterson's standard or better, performance wise. So they have something to learn off of versus being in the locker room where they learn it off themselves, and they learn it on the fly. And like in the previous running backs was learning on the fly. The Kevin Jones, the Kevin Smiths, the Amir Abdullahs, the Javid Best and so forth. They was learning on the fly. They had no one there to teach them how to really do it. And that's one thing this team has always lacked. They never had a leader in that rifle like positional group to like show them how it should be done. And I believe Quinn and Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia and that whole staff. And I definitely I can't salute Bob Quinn enough. That how he's building this team for success, and he building it with leaders in every positional group. He has a leader there to not be the so-called quote unquote best pure talent, but the example or to be an anchor to build off of. Either the talent that you bring in is going to be to that level or it's going to be above that level, but it won't be beneath it. So the Lions have never had that. So I'm a huge fan of keeping Quinn and Patricia for a fourth year. I'm a huge fan of it. Not just because they beat the Jacksonville. I was a huge fan. I just needed 3 games. I needed 3 years for Patricia to show me that if he's a coach or not. And I'm not looking for a coach in terms of wins and losses. I'm looking for a coach in terms of like how to build continuity, and not just continuity. Cardwell Schwartz was building continuity, but it's a different type of continuity. Like particularly in Detroit. Detroit success cannot be built like other teams. Detroit has a different atmosphere than other teams. There's a lot of stuff that you had to overcome here to be successful. So you have to get guys who have overcome a lot of different adversity. They're like considered, I guess they could be considered cast-offs. If you look at all the teams that have won here, maybe with the exception of the '84 Tigers, I don't know if there was much of cast-offs as much they was drafted players and they came up through the ranks up under Sparky and everything, but you have few cast-offs there, right? But if you're going to talk about the Jim Leland and Dave Dombrowski run and with the Tigers, or you talking about the Red Wings, and they was cast-offs, and they came together. And definitely when you talk about the Bad Boys and the Bad Boys was like, yeah, definitely cast-offs from Chuck Daly on down. Chuck Daly to Bill Laimbeer to Vinnie Johnson to James Edwards. Uh, Maybe it was a few of Rick Mahorn. They were like cast-offs. So you could say the same thing with the going to work. So I say that to say about the Lions, they have never had like cast-offs that was like leaders or they came in to do yeah. Normally when you brought a player in here, they came here for the check. They didn't care. They played to the level now because they didn't have to be held accountable. Like this, I think this is the first tandem of a GM coach ever been on the same page. And for this team to ever have any kind of success and to have a foundation to build off of a structure, they would have to have that tandem to be having a standard. And they wanted the same. I get why people want it. Even still may want Patricia fired. I get it. It doesn't do me any good because I see exactly what Quinn and Patricia were doing from the very start. You know, with a team like the Lions that's been losing for over 50 years, and economically it could be pretty much successful, but in terms of as a I guess a competitive nature of winning, nah, it's not so much successful. But anyway, I'm going way off. Going back to the run game. The run game is pretty much is there. The offensive line is gelling. How do I know that the offensive line is gelling? Whenever you have someone, I think Matt Nelson, I think that's the guy name. He was a converted defensive lineman. You having guys that don't. It doesn't matter. They just want to play. They want to be a part of something, and so they're building that type of atmosphere where it doesn't matter if you're a linebacker that you finna turn into a fullback. It doesn't matter. Like players is willing to play here. That's all. That's credit to Matt Patricia. That's credit. You start from the head on down. When Quinn and they cleaned house when he first got here. They cleaned house in the upper management and so forth. They tripled all the way down. If they can do their job up top, it triples down. Everybody else can do their job, and it don't put that much pressure for the next one to carry the load. And you can see it, the layers that's being built. The secondary actually, if you look how a fan may say, look how aggressive they were, in their defense. Well, Matt Patricia, somebody may say Matt Patricia is changing it up. I don't think he's necessarily changing it up as much as the players is understanding what he's asking for. It's not just X's and O's. It's a certain level of attention to detail that he's looking for. That's why I think certain players don't get the snaps in comparison to others. It's the attention to detail. It's the little small things that I think they, and maybe Matt Patricia may be not the most sympathetic or empathetic type of guy to get that point across. Yet and still, it's still the point of emphasis. So I think he's doing a great job. I care less what the media says, the local media, I can care less about that. I know what I see. I see this team progressing, and progressing necessarily doesn't mean win or losses. Particularly if you're talking about longevity. Success basically is dependent upon continuity. And if you look at for the last past, let's say from Barry Sanders all the way up, I never seen continuity before. I've seen overachieving teams, may have get 10 to maybe 12 wins or something like that. But I've never seen it where it was a consistent deal. So with that being said, the Lions offensive line is building the continuity and they gelling. Whenever you can get a guy when you got your right side of the ball goes down and parts of your left side goes down. This is throughout the year, and players are stepping in or they have to convert from one side of it. Nobody's complaining. Of course, they say, "Well, we're getting paid," and everything. No, you can get paid and still complain. How do I know they're not complaining? Is that they're still playing at a high level that they would in their rightful place. Not a high level in terms like the very best in the league, but they're not slouching back. They're not taking the time off. Well, this is not my spot, so if I do it, I do it. If I don't, I don't. That's not their approach. They want to do it as equally as good if they could in a rightful spot. So if they had to go from, let's say, for example, Halali Paludivati, when he had to go from right tackle to, I believe, right guard. Yeah, because they put Jonah over to the left guard when Joe Dahl went down. So you have, when you see that, and even if he's not being as equally as efficient as he could be in his rightful spot as a right tackle or even a left tackle, he's approaching it like I'm going to be. I'm not going to just give him my best. I'm going to do better than my best. I'm going to, go all out for it. And you see a lot of guys stepping up in that place, and it's like a different Terrell Crosby. It's a different Bevel, whatever you could say. The conditioning could, I don't know, whatever could be. That maybe you got a different offensive line coordinator or whatever. I don't know. But all I'm saying is that you could see the attention to detail is kicking in, where players is not just loafing around. Now, don't get me wrong. There's still our mental errors that will be cleaned up. The point of this last video that I did before this one, or this, we could say this is a continuation from the last one, is that they're building continuity. With that being said, the Lions' offensive line has not just the potential, but you can see it in the making. 150 to 100 to a 200-yard per game rushing attack. With that being said, Lions fans, I salute.